everybody, this is Mike with OnPoint Preparedness. So this will be a fun live stream for us to all get together and talk, because this will be the first live stream that I've done since after the very turbulent election. Well, actually, the elections are still going, and that's sort of the topic of today's video. Now, there's a ton of information that is going on regarding the elections. And so my role in the body of Christ is not to be a political pundit. We're not going to be discussing politics per se, and we're not going to be going through everything about fraud and all these things. We're still going to touch on it. I can't really completely decouple what's going on in the news and things regarding politics and from things that I see that are prophetically based. But again, we're not going to get into deep politics in this. I'm not a political pundit. You can research these things all for yourselves. Again, we're going to focus on the results, the ongoing results of the elections in comparison to everything that's happened in 2020 from a scriptural point of view. And that's actually what I've entitled this video, is what has been will continue to be. And you'll see why I've entitled it as such. So I think this is going to be maybe around 45-minute live stream. We've got a lot of stuff to unpack. But again, it's all pretty relevant. So let me go ahead on over here, and we're going to look at a whole ton of notes that I've gathered for you all today. Now, again, I can't completely decouple politics from this broadcast, so I'm just going to give you some cliff notes. So first, I've looked through a whole bunch of statistical websites, places that actually go through data. There's a whole bunch of anecdotal evidence of voter fraud. Like, there's a video of someone unloading a box, and they don't know exactly what the box is. And in one case, it was a media personnel. That's all anecdotal evidence, and it can sway back and forth. But if you look at hard evidence, especially concerning data, which you can extract, this first bullet point, I've seen lots of websites from statisticians, and they've used equations to detect voter fraud. And you can see definitively that there was massive voter fraud in terms of specific swing states, and even within those states, specific counties. I mean, the statistics don't lie. Data doesn't lie. Okay, so that's one thing to show that this is still an ongoing election. Trump's not completely out of it. Okay, I've also seen multiple cybersecurity experts demonstrating that fraud can indeed occur. Like, it's very prevalent, and they actually show you how. I might put some links in the YouTube description box if you're interested in seeing those. But again, many cybersecurity experts are testifying that they are witnessing large-scale fraud. Now we've gotten to the point where there are thousands, I believe the last number was in the 2,000 some, affidavits from poll watchers to postal employees testifying to corruption of backdating and all sorts of things. And again, when you're under affidavit and you're going to be testifying, if you lie, there's a consequence to that, versus just lying in public, where there really isn't always a consequence. But if you lie, it's perjury, and you could get up to 5 years. So again, these people are more than likely testifying truth of what they have seen. Now we're seeing multiple attorney generals from other states aligning with the existing lawsuits against PA, and there may be some other lawsuits against other states. There's now many high-profile Republicans saying that there is not going to be any concession in terms of the election. I got some screenshots down here. The Michigan state legislature, which is Republican-held, is holding a rare emergency session to investigate voter fraud. And so, again, I just put these bullet points down because we've covered over the last 6 to 9 months this whole false light paradigm, and shown an abundance of evidence for why this is more than likely the great delusion, that there is a lot of deception in this. And when Trump supposedly lost the election, well, then a lot of people are thinking, well, what does it do to that narrative? Does it change anything? And so I've put out some informal Facebook posts saying, at least for me, it really hasn't changed anything at all. In fact, it's almost like the worst case scenario, and I'll tell you why later on through the broadcast. It actually expands the situation at hand and encompasses more parties and more people in terms of this grand exposure type of event. And so we're going to go ahead on through these notes here, and I'll demonstrate that more clearly. But I want to show you that this whole thing hasn't fleshed out yet, and so we should really be patient and before we start jumping in terms of all the different various views of eschatology. Remember, I said can't be dogmatic in any position, even the opinion that I'm giving. I'm not asking anyone to be dogmatic about it. I'm just showing you my opinion in terms of everything that I've found, and I'm going to compile that at the end of this broadcast so you can see just how much weight there is to it. But again, we shouldn't be saying, oh, well, now it's going to be Biden, and then he's going to have some ailment, and it's going to be Kamala Harris, and Kamala's name means lotus, and therefore, she's the one that's... Okay, just patience. We've got a lot of time left before this whole vote is completely certified through the electoral college, as well as even if they do happen to go with Biden after that, even that doesn't guarantee that there's not going to be some type of fight come January. So we just watch. We just have to be patient, and we have to watch. And I put a Facebook post out a couple days ago talking about prayer and how whatever prayer you're praying, I'm not talking about the elections here, when you pray and God doesn't immediately answer, you can do generally one of two things. You can either be patient and remain in prayer, or you can sort of accept the situation at hand. However, what we're seeing right now is that people don't necessarily want to be patient. People definitely don't want to, and nor do I think they should accept the results, because there is definitive fraud, it looks like, going on. But what I think you're going to see happen is lots of people are just going to take matters into their own hands. And so that is a risk area that I see, is if for whatever reason, I don't think it's going to go this way, but if for whatever reason we get to the electoral college and they still go with Biden, people may take things into their own hands. And so that could really be not good, quite frankly. So let's just go through all the stuff that I have for you today, and just be open to all the different positions, but not get too dogmatic about, how does this change things, if it even changes things. So 2 other things before we actually start getting into the scripture and looking at this from what I think is a biblical perspective. Some high-profile people like Lindsey Graham saying if Trump concedes the election, Republicans will never elect another president. Essentially, he's acknowledging that, yeah, there is definitely voter fraud, and if we let them get away with this, well then, we have no chance. We have absolutely no chance. And very interestingly, Real Clear Politics, which is, in terms of media bias, right-center. They're not polar right. They're like right-center. They've actually removed Pennsylvania from being Biden's, and they've also removed Arizona from being Biden's. And you can see Biden's electoral votes is now down to 259. So that's interesting. And again, you're starting to see some presidents, like the Mexican president and Putin, also not acknowledging Biden until, all these lawsuits are fleshed out. So, but that is minimal in terms of just the wave of media presence sort of acknowledging Biden. It has been overwhelming, like absolutely overwhelming. And we're going to touch on that a little bit towards the end here, because I do think that it could have some prophetic implications. And let me just do one thing here if I can. I'm actually not seeing the chat come through, so let me see if I can get these comments back on my screen. There we go. Okay. I got you guys now. Just wanted to make sure that there wasn't any problems with audio or anything like that, because sometimes people will warn me. All right. So, I'm not a political pundit. So, we're not going to really focus on politics. So, let's look at this from a biblical perspective and why I entitled this video the way I did. Okay, we're going to start in Revelation 12:12. Only 3 verses, okay? Therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. But woe to you, O earth and sea, for the devil has come down to you in great wrath, because he knows that his time is short. The one thing that I want to make very clear to you all is that God is sovereign. Whatever plans that the enemy has, he is being permitted by God, okay? We always have to remember that God is sovereign over this whole thing. And so we definitely should not fear the enemy. But as we see in the story of Job, and I have just one verse highlighted here in Job 1:12, sometimes Satan is permitted to do what he wills. It's God is giving him a time to, allow Satan to do what he wants, to really just show Satan that he's going to fall flat on his face. But in Job, it says, "And the Lord said to Satan, Behold, all that he has is in your hand. Only against him do not stretch out your hand. Or only against him do not stretch out your hand." So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. So again, these two verses just show that, right? God is sovereign. Whatever I speak of, in talking about the enemy's plans, it's because he's being permitted to a particular degree. That being said, everything I'm going to talk about today with regards to 2020 is really all summed up well in 1 Corinthians chapter 14:33. For God is not a God of confusion, but of peace. God is not a God of confusion. And so if something is driving utter confusion, it's not from God. And so what have we seen all 2020? It has been nothing but confusion. And I want to tie this into the election. So 2020, we know that we're in the time. We're in the signs of the times. We don't know exactly where we are in tribulation, if we're in tribulation, but we know that this is very clearly from the enemy. That a global scale of confusion and intertwining. This is definitely something major prophetically that's going on. And it is all by the hand of Satan, permitted with certain boundaries from God. And I want to just demonstrate that a little bit with regards to the whole virus thing. So you all will have a good recollection of this as I go through a lot of these examples and screenshots. Okay, so I remember doing videos back in January and February talking about the virus and how it's in China. And before it really even came to the U.S., the media was the one saying, oh, it's no worse than the flu. It's no big deal at all. So, I mean, this one here, I forget which website this was, but it's a mainstream media one. So far, the new coronavirus, dubbed 2019 nCoV, has led to more than 20,000 illnesses and 427 deaths in China, blah, blah, blah. But that's nothing compared with the flu, also called influenza. And you guys know of all the media stories saying in the beginning that this wasn't anything big at all. Okay? And then you go forward a little bit in time. Again, this was dated sometime back in March. I was actually using Google's search engine to only look for news articles in particular months of the year. Fast forward here to August 13th, I think that is, 2020. And scientists say that coronavirus is at least as deadly, as the 1918 flu pandemic, which in history was a very, very terrible time in terms of, the disease. So it's confusion. It's confusion because the narrative's always changing. Now, this is sort of funny. I actually made this meme. I'm sort of proud of it. But strangest thing in the world to me regarding this year. I mean, as if 2020 wasn't strange enough. This was the strangest thing. I was covering a lot about this virus early on in the year. And there were legitimate videos from citizenry in China warning about this virus, saying that it's deadly, saying that the Chinese government is lying to us, and you all need to beware. And these people were literally being martyred. They would disappear. They went off the radar. Some of them were definitively thrown into camps. They weren't actors. I really don't buy that. There was way too many of these videos. And compared with some of the other staged things that I've seen throughout the past decade, it definitely was not staged. These definitely weren't actors. They were warning us, and they were being imprisoned by their government for warning us about this. So you have that on one hand. Then it comes to the United States, and it's a hoax. It's either 5G or it's basically there's no virus at all. That basically this is just excretions from your cells or waste from your cells whenever you don't have a healthy diet, and that's what's causing you to be sick. There's no such things as viruses anymore at all. Then it changed into be that this was a virus that only attacked Asian people, and then it was a virus that only attacked black people, and it just kept on changing and changing and changing and changing, and so more confusion. But again, that the whole thing where China was warning us and they were martyring themselves, they were becoming martyrs, and then the opposite side, you have a hoax. Okay, it's confusion. This is the meme that I made. I think it's sort of funny because a lot of the people that were saying that this is a fake virus were the same ones that maybe a year earlier were talking about the Georgia Guidestones and the elite's plan to depopulate the whole world. So, and whenever you see these false, the word, I don't want to get censored on YouTube, but the FF, I swear, like maybe 8 times out of 10, they'll say it's all crisis stuff, the actors and all that. And it's like, it's not, at some point, you're going to have to pick a narrative. You're going to have to say there's a global elite plan to depopulate the whole world, and these are real events, or, you get what I'm saying here. But anyways, thought that was just sort of interesting. All right, going on with the confusion. Yep, just went a little bit up there. Okay, it's not airborne, they said. Just wash your hands. Then it is airborne. Then it's not airborne. Then it's airborne again. So here's some articles I got for you. For some reason, my thing keeps on going to the top. CNBC. Coronavirus lives for hours in the air. These particles, and days on surface, new U.S. study shows. Now here's another one. Fact check. COVID-19 is not airborne. These droplets are too heavy to hang in the air. They quickly fall on floors or surfaces. So which is it? Is it hours? Or is it just, your 6 feet distance and then it falls to the floor? Again, it's confusion. What about when you transmit the disease? Okay, well, first people thought it was a couple days. Then it was 14 days. Then it was 21 days. Here's some articles saying generally 14 days, but it could be longer. Then there's another one that says 21 days. And then there was another article, I don't have it here, 28 days. So it's sort of like a reference to 28 days later. And then who clarifies that they don't have an answer yet in terms of asymptomatic spread, that there might not be any spread at all for asymptomatic carriers. Okay, so what is it? Again, it's confusion. Let me just take a break before I start to go into more of the pandemic stuff. I talked about this in March 31st, 2020. I did this video called The Division, Truther versus Truther. And I noticed that although, this is a global issue, there's lots of different studies, there's lots of different doctors, there's lots of different opinions. It's the talk of the town, it's fast paced. And so naturally, you're going to get differences of opinion, and there's going to be some confusion. But I think we can all come to the agreement that the confusion that was sowed regarding this issue was way beyond normal. Okay, and for me, I believe it's spiritual warfare. I believe it was to drive division, chaos, anger, poor decision making. Again, God is not the author of confusion. The devil is. And so we see the devil's hand in all of this confusion. It wasn't just organic, it was purposeful. Okay. Going on with just a couple more examples, just with the whole coronavirus thing. How long does it stay alive on surfaces? We get this National Institute of Health article that says it stays alive on surfaces for 17 days on the Diamond Princess. These two articles here. Yep, keeps on going up. I don't know why. 17 days. But then you've got another article. So NIH says coronavirus is stable for hours on surfaces. So sorry, my apology there. NIH says hours on surfaces. Then another study says 17 days on the Diamond Princess. Then another article says 28 days, but though in lab conditions. So again, that is a little bit different. Lab conditions versus in situ is different. But again, more confusion. And so that's all I have on the virus. But I just want to show you Okay, yes, that there is a lot of attention on this globally, so that is a reason why you have some division, but this is more than normal, and especially then you start to have all the questions about masks. You guys know how contentious masks are. Mask or no mask? Is it effective? Is it not effective? Lockdowns or no lockdowns? It was like 14 days to stop the spread, and then after 14 days stopped, well then another 14 days, another 21 days. Are we going to lock down a little bit longer? And then we get some freedom, but no, we got to go lock down again. And especially here with the whole second wave thing. Is it second wave? Is it not? These repeated insults of confusion are really deteriorating people's psychological well-being. Again, it's sowing division, it's sowing confusion. And the way that people react to this is always going to be negative. People either completely shut down, people get violent, which is going to tie into this whole election thing. I mean, you guys know the symptoms of these repeated insults of confusion. And so, again, just in summary, we've been seeing this narrative of confusion be driven for the entire year, and we've seen the effects of it. And so this whole situation with election fraud is really no different than what we've been experiencing to date spiritually. And just to summarize the election fraud from a psychological and a spiritual point of view, what does this do if it's proven that fraud has occurred and it actually tipped the balances towards Biden and Trump is really the winner? You guys know. I mean, you guys know. It increases, so for one, it increases the scope of destruction of the current order. So we've talked about order out of chaos. I've talked about the whole false light thing, and especially the whole child thing. The child thing is fairly targeted to particular institutions or individuals. Now that scope has just been broadened, yet with another topic, just wide-scale corruption. We've got news media now at large, news media at large. It's actually pretty ridiculous. And you know what? I do hope justice is served. As much as I understand Trump is not a true Christian and everything, and by no means am I like favoring him or I'm tipping the scale, but I mean, everyone wants to see justice done. Same thing with these child things, the rings. You want to see justice done. I do hope that justice is served because some of these people are just really peeving me off in terms of how they're reacting. I do hope justice is served. But I know exactly how the enemy is going to use this if it indeed happens, right? I know the potential narrative, but still, I just hope judgment is inflicted here. But again, many news media organizations and talking heads are going to be implicated. Local and state officials like governors and mayors. Again, it increases scope. It increases the severity of this organization or people that identify as that. It's going to really, really increase their response if Trump is elected. Absolutely. I don't see, if Biden were to get the electoral votes, I don't see really patriots rebelling like we've seen the other side rebel in terms of like trashing stores and all that. If you look at all the scenes today, it's generally right. There's a couple instances where there's some violence, but it's because the other side is there and they're provoking things. Generally, it's just a lot of people with flags and just standing outside, and there's not even a whole ton of them, and it's just peaceful protest. Generally speaking, I don't see, even if Biden wins it with electoral votes, that you're going to see like widespread destruction from the patriots. They're just not going to act that way. More than likely, though, we will see patriots, violently defend themselves if you see this like response from the left. So again, if we've seen what we've seen, today with Portland and New York and Philadelphia and all these things, and this happens and it's 10 times worse, you better believe that there's going to be potentially an equal and opposite reaction from the right. That's when the right gets involved. And we've, again, seen some of these break out on a small scale. And that's what I have here. Increases the severity of the Patriot defense response, if you will. And then this one, and this is a big one. I want to cover this towards the end of this broadcast. If these lawsuits get close to where this whole thing gets exposed, and again, the data does not lie. The data's there. You're going to have widespread corruption in the courts to really, neglect this. And in fact, you wonder if this goes to the Supreme Court, and you also have Amy Barrett in there. I mean, there's a lot of things stacking up on top of each other. If it goes all the way to the Supreme Court, which it might, it's going to get heated. But this last statement, I want to come back to this towards the end of this broadcast, because again, I have said on this program that you have two sides, both which really aren't rooted in Christ. The left, obviously, with all the radical left, you see them rioting and all this stuff. That that's not righteousness. But then on the right side, you have all these people with false gospels that just say the name of Jesus and they appear righteous, and they're just not. It's two groups of people that truly don't understand the gospel. And we don't war against the flesh. This is all spiritual, but I'm just saying. Two sides that aren't necessarily rooted in truth, that are warring against one another for power. And you better believe that each side is going to do everything that they can to retain that power and also to cover their butts. And so, if we get to the point where this is looking like the fraud is going to be exposed, the cabal, the left, whatever you want to call them, the elites, you do have to anticipate that there's going to be a strong reaction for them to cover their butts. I don't know what all that entails. I just had this thing. Remember, I did a video on blackout. You wonder, these false thing that waves in the air, things like that. You remember the comments from Bill Gates about how people don't really pay attention to this first wave, but when the second wave comes, they definitely will understand. I mean, particularly the virus itself. Trump has taken a very freedom, libertarian type of view. We need to not shut down. We need to not wear masks. If you wanted to try to bring him down, releasing some type of mutated strain and proving him wrong, that would be some type of flag. Whole bunch of things. They have the capability to do these things. I'm not trying to instill fear or anything, but again, talking about risks, that is a risk. Okay? So overall, everything that I've been talking about for the last 9 months, there goes my page again. Everything I've been talking about for the last 9 months, I have summarized here. And these summary points, what it means to me is I don't think Trump is going anywhere. Okay, I know some people say, Biden is the beast system, or it's really not Biden, but because of Nancy Pelosi looking at the amendment for presidential succession, if they're unable to, fill out their duties and their role as president, well, then it's going to be Kamala, and Kamala is definitely a radical, and she's gonna lock everyone down and blah 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 blah. I don't buy that narrative. I just don't. I'll tell you why. I've actually got a note down here later. You have to understand, the entire world hates the lockdowns. We are seeing riots in almost every single first world country. Every single first world country. You look at France, you look at Spain, all these places, UK, all these places that are going into the second round of national lockdowns, they are taking to the streets and they are rebelling and they're violent. Okay? People don't even want to put a mask or a piece of cloth on their face. What makes you think that this supposed totalitarian beast system is going to somehow manage mandatory vaccines, which is the supposed mark of the beast, or even a chip getting painfully injected into your hand, when people don't even want to put on a paper mask? Okay? at some point, these people, if you go too far, it's going to outright rebel and the leaders are going to be taken down. We're already looking at revolt. And so that's why it just, in terms of looking at things prophetically, I don't see a concern there, really. I mean, it's possible. It's possible that that is the order out of chaos, but I don't think the elite are actually going to be able to do that with how we've seen the populace at large globally react. They're just not going to take it. So, summary of everything, or almost everything that I can think of over the last 9 months, and why I think prophetically, I'm not claiming a prophecy here, but things that I see prophetically, why I have grave concerns over Trump more so than Kamala or Biden or even Obama. There was a lot of things with Obama, but I really wasn't quite concerned with Obama. And the reason why was because he wasn't very religious. He was very much secular. There were a couple articles about people treating him as Messiah, but he was largely secular. And as I talked with you in my video on the Bride, the Beast, and the Harlot, and specifically the harlot being a woman, which is the antithesis of the bride of Christ. You have a faithful woman, which is a bride, which is a church. And then you have a loose woman, who is the harlot. It is some type of church, anti-church institution that controls nations. It's like a theocracy. Okay? That is why Trump concerns me. Not to say that he's the Antichrist, but honestly, I'm going to do a video on why I'm sort of gravitating towards him being the leader of the false prophet beast system. But that's why Trump concerns me the most, and everything that I have here in red. So we're just going to go through this real quickly. Tons of New Agers are supporting Trump. We've talked about the prominent movies all supporting Trump, like Out of the Shadows. And indirectly, I don't think they supported Trump directly in the video, but indirectly with his ideals, Plandemic supported him, talking about the Great Awakening. Occultists are supporting Trump, one of those being Marina Abramovic. I'm going to cover her a little bit more in detail here. All the prominent doctors that we've covered on this show all have New Age tendencies. And again, they're supporting Trump. You've got this widespread corruption of evangelicals, which are all supporting Trump. NAR Christians, which is sort of the same type of thing with evangelicals. You have these massive conferences like The Return, which is all talking about revival and awakening and how Trump is going to bring this. You get a whole bunch of other Christians, that maybe don't fit into those categories and they have questionable beliefs and teachings, and they're all talking about revival with Trump. You've obviously got the whole this one. I mean, now YouTube's starting to censor anyone that starts talking about them, but you have that group, which is huge. It's not just a United States phenomenon. I've done videos showing that this is a mainstream phenomenon where you actually have people getting elected and are sitting in the House of Representatives that are actually identifying with this group. General Flynn is now doing hashtags that belong to this group. It is mainstream. And everything that they stand for and everything that I've talked about on this channel. Patriots, the Vatican Bishop Vigano, which we're going to show a couple more screenshots of him. So really shocking things with regards to that. Prominent rabbis in Israel saying that Donald Trump is a political messiah. The Jews actually believe in two messiahs, a political or government type messiah and a spiritual messiah. And a lot of rabbis think that he is possibly a political messiah for them. I mean, we've seen, Sanhedrin put his face on a coin and all these things. And many people say that Donald Trump, coming out of Israel, that Donald Trump is like the second coming of God. Kanye West and everything that he has said. They're all saying generally the same things. Trump is bringing the Great Awakening. He's a political messiah to Israel and the Sanhedrin. Somehow, and I think part of it is through blackmail, he's got some leverage to bring upon these Abraham Accords and somehow get all these countries to sign peace deals with Israel, which is completely opposed to what a lot of their populace wants. You've seen riots break out because of these peace agreements. again, that's a historical thing, and you have to wonder exactly what does he have. A lot of people may think that he's an idiot, but what does he have that he was able to make that happen? Okay, you don't just do these things and you go quietly away into the shadows because Biden beat you. You just don't. You got all these people, again, speaking of a wave of revival. I talked about Marcus Rogers. He's still talking about the wave of revival that's coming, and waves are definitively spoken about in the Bible as a bad thing. The return, we talked about that. Marina Abramovic, I talked about occultists that are supporting Trump. She says that Trump is a horrible man, but she believes, in terms of tarot, that he's the magician. And I spoke about this in a video, that the magician is the one that wakes us all up. She's like, he's the one. He's so polar. He's so just out there doing his own thing, rebellious and everything, that he is the one that is going to bring the awakening. Archbishop Vigano, we're going to look at some pictures below. And so I really don't buy these things, okay? With everything that I've just covered from here to here, I don't see the Biden or Kamala presidency as the beast system, okay? It's just not going to work with people already rebelling against things as minor as the mask. I also have covered in detail why the vaccine being the mark of the beast has hints of, or is, a Gnostic view. Not everyone's on the internet researching these things. And so people that just aren't in the know, that don't have the worldly knowledge, and happen to get the vaccine because they think it's a good thing because they still trust the system, you're going to tell me that they've received the mark and then now they're eternally damned to hell because they just didn't have knowledge? That is the definition of Gnosticism. Is if you listen to certain people or you've got access to knowledge which is online, that you're being duped, that the vaccine has certain ingredients in it that are hidden from you. If you don't know and understand these things, well, then you're going to take this mark and you're going to go to hell. But if you have this knowledge, you can save yourself. I mean, that's really what it is. It's salvation through Jesus Christ only, but you might get duped into taking the vaccine and go to hell. So through this secret knowledge, which is inherently just online, well, then, you can prevent that. And it's actually leading to a dumbing down of the faith. Because there are New Agers. I've done lots of videos on this. New Agers are warning their followers who are not in Christ, don't take the vaccine because it's the mark of the beast. They're actually teaching and studying from Revelation. And you mean to tell me that people who are not rooted in Christ, somehow God has given discernment to where they know what the mark is? It just doesn't add up. Okay? Or likewise the chip. Okay, so there is a lot of heavy things that are all around Trump, and I just don't see him riding off into the sunset and we don't hear from him again. Okay? Prophetically speaking, he has tons of people under delusion. Tons of people under delusion in various different degrees. And let me show just a couple sad stories here. Jack Hibbs, a lot of people said he was an excellent pastor for a very long time. And then I did a video showing that I was concerned because he was starting to align with Charlie Kirk from Talking Something USA. I don't know. But he's Charlie Kirk says he's a Christian, but yet I've shown that Charlie Kirk has he has really no doubts about aligning with Catholicism for the sake of moralism. Like, he supports Catholic schools and he wants more Catholic schools, all for the sake of just moralism, even though he acknowledges that they're not like Protestants. It's a different gospel. And so I was very weary about that relationship. And sure enough, I'm continuing to see Jack Hibbs do more things regarding moralism and getting entangled with people that are not of the faith. So this is on Jack Hibbs' Facebook page. And notice here in the top right corner, he has pinned this. So it's not just a casual Facebook post on his page. He has pinned this there for some period of time to relay Archbishop Vigano's letter to Trump so that he can propagate this message of the mark of the beast even further, and all the fallacies that this bishop is talking about. Well, not necessarily fallacies, right? But this archbishop is feeding into this narrative of the deep evil cabal and the elite. They're all against us. Look at them, and only Trump can lead us out of here, and we need to support Trump. And so he's pinning someone that is false brethren of the Catholic faith, and because this message that this bishop is propagating, because it's aligned with supposed conservative values, and because it exemplifies this whole woke theory, it's getting pinned to the top of his page. This is bad. This is why I believe whatever Trump is bringing, this is part of the great delusion. Considering Jack Hibbs, a lot of people, again, I don't have to have a need to really look into his whole history, but a sound pastor, it's almost like the story of where Paul was saying even Barnabas was led astray by the Jews' hypocrisy. Paul was astonished that even his companion in travel, because of the strong delusion. So here you have pastors which were otherwise sound starting to get completely delusioned by this whole false light thing. Okay, this isn't something that just goes away. This archbishop also showed up on Fox Business. And they have the quote, "A global plan called the Great Reset is underway. Its architect is a global elite who wants to subdue all humanity, imposing coercive measures with which drastically limit individual freedoms and those of the entire populations." Again, this is being fed to us purposefully so that everyone can rebel against the current order. And the beast system that Scripture says everyone will worship is going to be one that delivers people from this supposed evil. I mean, it is evil, right? This whole global elite thing, it's not a lie. It's definitely happening. They definitely are evil. They definitely want to control us. But it's being purposely exposed to bring in a new form of evil. Changing of the guard, essentially. I already covered that about the Mass and how, again, people can't even handle that, let alone if some deep evil cabal tried to do more than that. They're just not going to take it. But people are certainly eating this stuff up. People certainly are eating up the false light. There's no doubt about that. Oh, and it's sort of interesting as well that the person that, I guess this person this person retweeted this post from an alchemist. So there you go again, even more deception. This Fox News is talking about this, and all the alchemists, which is all rooted in sorcery and witchcraft, they're eating it up, and then it's going off to Christians, and it's a mess. It is an absolute mess. This is significantly a huge delusion, and that's why I really, again, could I be wrong? Absolutely. I could always be wrong. But I'm showing you a weight of evidence to show that I just don't, maybe Trump comes in later. Maybe he gets deposed out of office and he comes back later. Who knows? But I don't think he's done. There's just too much that he's done, and there's too much he's intertwined with. And even his own statement saying he will never concede, I don't think he's going anywhere. And as I've shown you, the prospects for increased confusion, damage, violence, everything, it heightens the game even more. It's almost like a worst case scenario. And, with the devil behind this all throughout 2020, because he's the author of confusion, you can see sort of exactly what he's doing in this circumstance as well. I don't have these in any particular order, but I got maybe like 5 more screenshots here, and maybe I'll end with some additional commentary. As I said, a lot of people took the media's bait, and they said, oh, okay, well, it's Biden. And so here we go. We trust that it's Biden. And they're going to be seriously upset when or if those tables are turned. I just want to, again, put out this public service announcement that with the whole pandemic thing, this is something else that could be flipped on us. And so my prayer and my asks to everyone is, because I know there's a lot of heated opinions about whether everything about this virus, whether it really doesn't do any harm to anyone. Yeah, it's deadly in some circumstances, but it has this like 0.000 whatever percent death rate and everything. I just want to show you these two screenshots, and I've got tons of them. This dang screen thing. Let's go back here. I've got tons of these screenshots. Now, this is local news, okay? This isn't, they are left-wing biased. I think most of the news now is left-wing biased. But again, this isn't like I'm going to Dave Hodges or, I'm not going to truther sites and looking at this. These are just regular Cincinnati news stations. And if you look at Columbus or elsewhere in other states, it's all the same thing. I'm seeing about 70% of articles from news agencies regarding the virus be met with laughing or mocking emojis. So this one, 137 people reacted to, many counties in Ohio. You can see the comparison left to right are going red in terms of increased hospitalizations and increased rates of infections. It's being laughed at. You look at Kentucky, 80 of Kentucky's 120 counties now listed in the red zone. It's being laughed at. I've got probably 10 different other screenshots where everyone's laughing at it now. But I have to remind you, again, what Bill Gates said, that people don't really take this first wave seriously, but when the second wave comes, they'll know. And him and Melinda smiled, okay? This definitely wasn't an accident. It definitely wasn't zoonotic. It was definitely introduced based on the reactions that we saw happen afterwards. What makes you think that they would not, again, introduce something else? Especially with the fact that I told you before, you have two competing sides of evil, and they're going to do everything they possibly can to stay in power. And if there's anything that they can do to try to take down Trump outside of the whole electoral fraud, is false waving the, okay? They could, not to instill fear anyone like that, they could do that, okay? And we sort of have that from Bill Gates' own mouth. So my prayer and my ask is, just as with these people on the left that are celebrating, thinking that they've fully won this thing and they don't see any other possibility, and then it's going to possibly get handed to them and they'll be completely distraught. Don't get so dogmatic about this virus to where you think that this whole thing's a hoax and it's never going to legitimize itself, because that also could flip. And again, we've seen with Bill Gates and other things that it could flip. And so what does that mean for you in your life? Wear a mask? Don't wear a mask. I don't care. I mean, obey. If a grocery store or a business says wear one, don't rebel against that. Just wear one. If you don't have to wear one, don't wear one. Don't wear a mask. I don't care. But don't engage in mockery, and don't engage in behavior that is boastful, thinking that we know everything. Because again, the Bible says that there will be pestilences, and with everything that we've been seeing to date, well, what better candidate for pestilence is there than this? Okay, so just don't be too dogmatic, as I've been saying with other things. Don't engage in mockery. Don't be too dogmatic. And I'm not saying go live in your basement for the rest of your life and don't associate with anyone, but just don't engage in mockery, okay? Other things, again, this is sort of random order, but as I'm scoping out Twitter and just seeing people's reaction, the whole cute crowd, I said it, so this video is going to get censored. They're going crazy. I mean, I don't even have enough time to talk about what I've seen there. But, I mean, this is just one of them. Ooh, this thing is really pulling my leg here. Trump will be reelected. All that are mocking the prophets of God in this hour will be shown to be fools. Mark my words. Think of the death and resurrection. This is a parallel. Oh, talk about the blasphemy. There's also a MAGA march that's being planned. I don't know if it's actually going to get any ground, but Everyone's sharing it. I think it's sometime in the next couple weeks, maybe November 14th. People are saying that we need to march around Washington just like the Israelites marched around the walls of Jericho. I mean, it's getting bad. Comparing, Trump has compared himself by retweeting someone else's words that he's like the second coming of God. Other people are saying that Trump and the media, saying that he's lost and he comes back is like Jesus' death and resurrection. Again, this stuff is heavy delusion. And this is just one circumstance of it. I've seen plenty. And then, so let's end here. I got 2 more screenshots for you. How am I doing on time? Okay. Yeah. The 45-minute thing is long past. We're going to go an hour. But I think this is all important. This is from Breitbart. And this is amazing. Google is still erasing Breitbart stories about Joe Biden from the search engine. Okay? So I believe, I don't know what keyword they used here, but again, this is Breitbart's internet traffic history. People that are searching Biden and coming to their site. And so you can see, anywhere from 10 to 50,000 impressions on the links. And then, boom, right there, right around the end of May, nothing. That they've completely erased Breitbart from the search engine regarding this topic. I have likewise seen, and this isn't anything new. I've seen Facebook do the same thing to myself and other people. So I know another person who has a YouTube ministry, and I confirmed this with many other people. They did a post on Biden, and I read it and I saved it, and then the day later I went on their profile and I couldn't find it. It was gone. And I searched on their profile and it wasn't gone. But yet I went to the save link and it was still there. Other people testified that as well, that literally things are being hidden. I mean, that's again, it's not new. Facebook's they're legitimately hiding things. And so that's, going back up to that statement I made before. Okay. The cabal, either side, the cabal though, the left, if you want to call them that, the elite, whatever name you have, they are going to do everything in their power to maintain control and to cover up what has happened. This is one blatant example of this where there's analytical proof, data. I love data. I'm a very analytically minded person, and so data doesn't lie. And here you can see non-anecdotal evidence, data-driven evidence that they are indeed not even just trying to hide it a little bit. It's not like they even took the search down like 25%. They just went, just sliced it off completely. And so, that's what I think about in terms of, if this gets to a head to where the whole thing is going to be turned over. I did that video. Again, I don't want to engage too much in conspiracy, but all the symbolism around blackout. Is it possible that something like that would happen? Again, because it seems like they're putting all their cards, even the election. If you've gotten into the fraud and exactly what all is occurring, there's something called vote switching, where like they'll take 10,000 votes from one candidate, and that candidate will drop 10,000, then the other candidate will magically get 10,000. Or if it's like 1,252, it's going to be that exact number switch. It's like an equal and opposite switch. I saw, and I believe this was on the Gateway Pundit, that they were literally doing switching in the databases at like 5 o'clock in the morning in Michigan. And it wasn't just 1,000 or 2,000. It was like 132,000 votes. Trump was taken down 132,000 and Biden went up 132,000, like 5 o'clock in the morning. And these cybersecurity experts are all documenting this and putting it on Twitter. And it's like, that is, you have to be pretty, you have to have some cojones to do that. It's not like, oh, let's just, 50 here, 50 there, and we'll do it over a long period of time. Hopefully no one, it's like 100,000, 130,000. So again, all the cards are coming out on the table. This is huge. I mean, there really is an unbelievable power struggle that's occurring. And so if and when this comes to be fully exposed, there's going to be some equal and opposite, or maybe even more than equal reaction for them to try to cover their tracks and try to hide this. And who knows what that all means to us. All I can tell you is just we as Christians, I know a lot of people don't agree with this. People want to justify war, and they'll use the Revolutionary War, and they'll use World War II and the Holocaust, and do all these things to try to encourage and say that, war, Christians going to war is biblical. I'm going to do a video at some point just talking about why we just need to stay back. We need to stay back. I think one thing is absolutely clear in the Bible is there are verses saying that we need to despise the shedding of blood. We need to despise it. And God is more favorable to those that do not shed blood, as evident in the story about David not being able to build a temple, but because his son hadn't shed blood, that honor was reserved for him. We need to stay out of this, because this, if it happens, it's going to get ugly. And I want to end with this. Again, let's just take a look. No, let's not take a look, because my screen wants to go to the very top again. Take a look at this article. Federalization of police threatens the rights of all Americans. Now, this was back in July, but I've seen more and more articles about this recently. Let me just switch off of here, but just keep this article in mind. Here's a good thing about this federalization of police. We see, especially in Portland, Oregon, all these people that are rioting on the streets and doing horrendous things. The state or local, whatever level of government it is that's prosecuting them in Wisconsin or in some of these liberal cities, they're just letting them go. It's like catch and release. They're just letting them go. And then they're coming back again and they're rioting. It's just, a vicious cycle. And so what the federal government did, if you pay attention to these stories, is in a lot of these cities where the violence has been extreme, like Portland, they have been deputizing local police and making them federal officers. They've been federalizing the police force so that if you get caught rioting, and if you get caught, you're likely not going to submit to police. You're going to try to fight back and run away or whatever. All these people are no longer falling in the jurisdiction of the local county or the state. They're falling under federal jurisdiction because they've assaulted a now deputized federal officer. And so on one hand, it's good. I'm like, haha, good. These people, you finally got what you deserve, and they're actually getting imprisoned because of these things, and they can't go and riot on the streets. Okay, that's good. Bad thing is, imagine, okay, that Trump gets the electoral vote, and you can imagine the reaction. Oh, the reaction is going to be bad. If we thought we saw riots before, it's going to be 10 times worse. You're likely going to see this same type of strategy be deployed in other cities. That is the federalization of police, all for the purpose of, so that certain counties can't just, let them go again. Prophetically, it's not good. That is not good. It's definitely good that for the circumstance of these rioters, and they're finally getting justice served to them. But again, thinking critically about this, the enemy always steeps things in truth and good, but there's always a negative consequence to it. I want to do a video. I did one several years ago about my belief that the United States is the beast of the earth. A lot of people think that the United States isn't in prophecy, and that's because it just gets destroyed. Some people think the United States is Mystery Babylon, which I've already disagreed with in my video, The Bride, the Beast, and the Harlot. And specifically, the United States better is defined as a beast because it's a nation versus the harlot, which is sort of like a church institution. But I did this video several years ago about the United States being the beast of the earth, which is also called a false prophet. It says it speaks as a lamb, yet is like the dragon. I made some statements in that video, which now I'm not agreeing with so much, so I'm going to remake that. But I'm really thinking that the United States is the beast of the earth. And if you recall, the beast of the earth has tremendous power, and it subdues the world, and it subdues the saints. And so as I think about just how much the world is captivated by America, everyone's hanging on the election results. And you've got people all over the world that have polar, very strong polar reactions to this whole thing. And granted, the United States' military presence all over the world. Within the United States, if you start to have federalization of police, you can sort of see where this is all going. Long term, okay, short term, it's a great thing. I have absolutely no problem it being a short term thing, and maybe it is. Maybe it is a short term thing. But again, if we start to see large scale riots again and massive federalization of police, we just have to watch out for that. So that's something I'm keeping tabs on. So we are over an hour and 1 minute. And so synopsis time, just my opinion, not a prophetic word or anything like that. But I think that we have seen enough regarding Trump that he carries a heavy weight with him prophetically. And that heavy weight being that the idea of him has caused many people to fall into a type of delusion of varying different degrees. And it's not just one particular group or the other. It's many. You've got all sorts of false Christians. And, if you voted for him, I'm not calling you a false Christian, right? If you voted on conscience and you just like his conservative policies, that's fine. I'm not saying everyone who votes Trump is bad, but you know that there are people that are borderline idolizing him. You got a whole bunch of false Christians with false gospels supporting him. You got New Agers supporting him. You've got occultists like Marina Abramović supporting him. You've got various countries idolizing him, like in India. If you've ever seen the idolization of Trump, it's pretty bad. You see in Israel, the Sanhedrin and everything he's doing for them, they're almost idolizing him. Again, there is something about him that is just sucking people in. And it's really because he presents himself as this figure that he's bringing peace, that he's bringing an end to evil and wicked things, that he's a moral figure. And that just doesn't ride off into the sunset. And it doesn't seem either like it's a relay race and he's transferring this off to someone and then they, finish off. He himself says that he's not finished. He's not conceding. And so where does that leave us? Just be patient. We've got a lot of time. I think it's December 14th. December 14th, I think, is when the Electoral College has to make a decision and all the recounts or everything has to be done before then. So that is a mile marker, so to say, that we need to look forward to. So between now and then, it's going to be very turbulent. It's going to be very turbulent. And then if for whatever reason he is still not elected president, then I don't even know what happens in January. Still even have to wait for January to see if there's a transition of power or if he's even still not conceding then. But again, one step at a time. I just don't think he's going anywhere. I know there's a lot of discerning Christians who also don't think so either because of many of the points, maybe not all, but many of the points that I've made so far. But let's not be dogmatic. Let's just be discerning and at least consider a lot of things that I've said today. So with that, I've covered a whole bunch. We'll move on to some other topics this week that I've been wanting to get to, but obviously this election thing is huge on the radar. So hopefully this brought just a little bit of knowledge into the equation in terms of my opinions and sort of things that I'm seeing. Hope it helped you in your thinking process as we tried to figure our way throughout all of this. And I'll see you all in the next video. I did see a couple people did some like super chat donations. Thank you so much. I apologize. I don't get to always like look at the chat and I get distracted, but thank you very much for your prayers for me and my family. And also for those of you who felt led to donate to the ministry. I appreciate you as well. God bless you all and keep the faith. This is Mike with On Point Preparedness. See ya.